on that same note, it's Pride Month. And so we talk about continuing to level ourselves up. But even when we look in our community, LGBTQ, let's go to that T a little bit, because that T in our community, and for those of you that don't know what I'm referring to, I'm using a little bit of like edgy slang for my community, but our transgender brothers and sisters are not represented, definitely not paid fair. They're literally dying, and we're not talking about it. And so for Rafael and Chacha, if your companies are doing anything, I would love to hear about that. But more specifically, if you have advice for all of us listening, especially those of us that are in decision-making roles, how we can help bring our trans brothers and sisters along, what we need to be doing for that community and stop being bystanders. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I'll jump in here. I'll start with coming back to one thing I had said earlier is I do think that as starting blocks, we do have to acknowledge and respect that the way people choose to find worth at work looks different. And being known for being queer isn't a trophy everyone always wants on their desk or in their Zoom background. And so giving people who are striving to be known for their work rather than the ways that they identify, I think it's okay. And so I do think we have to acknowledge that there are some folks who don't want to be known as the trans leader within the company or the trans person on a engineering team or people team. They want to be known as the project manager or the full stack engineer that's throwing down to create something that never existed first. A lot of people want to be known for that first. And so I think there's a respect there. But I also think if your company is not talking about trans people, then they are not seeing the US demographic and they are not seeing the people who want jobs. I don't think they're really even seeing it at all. And it's a blind spot. And I think that we're way past gender neutral bathroom signs. Like that is I mean, I don't even know what to say to that one. Like, congratulations, participation trophy. You're now in the race, but you're still at the start. And so I do think that there's a lot of work to do in terms of having conversations. There's a very clear trend that women are having a harder time in the workplace than men. Women of color are having a harder time in the workplace than white women. And then Black women are having the hardest experience overall. But if you go look at stats in the workplace, it stops there. It never goes into transgender women. It doesn't go into transgender Black women. It doesn't even include LGBTQ or veterans or the splices that make us human. And so I do think that there is work to be done in terms of the conversations that we're having externally. Media needs to do better. Companies need to do better in talking about these things. But I also think that you've got to bring it into conversations. So coming back to that weekly group session that we have, Rise Bites, where the company's invited, we have heard the death stats at least every 2 months for Black transgender people. And I think that if your company is not talking about that and they're only talking about AAPI or Black Lives Matters or specific movements within the Latin community, and they need to be talking about it all. Nobody gets a trophy for saying one thing one time last year. There needs to be action behind it. There needs to be conversation, and we need to be discussing it. And so I do think, though, that if we don't work on all of those things simultaneously, the T is going to continue to be left behind. And I also think that our LGBTQ, brothers and sisters need to look at each other and say, what am I doing? This comes back to the risking it all. Like, are you a white gay male that's happy to have made it and so you're done? Like, screw the T, screw the A, nobody knows what the plus means, but I'm fine, I'm getting paid? Or are you doing the work to make the T capital and everyone else lowercase? I think that there has to be more advocacy from even within our own community, but it comes at a price, right? What are you willing to risk? I'll keep coming back to that because I think as you go into each of the communities, folks are just not willing to advocate for one another. And then they're really not willing to do the work that needs to be done to get there.
Yeah, well, Chacha, unfortunately, there's not much to add to that because you hit it out the park, but also will say, I think our transgender sisters are and brothers are tired of having to advocate for themselves in different spaces. So how are we lifting them up as we continue to climb? How are we ensuring that we are, because we're past non-binary bathrooms, and we're also past pronouns. Because if you can't even make them feel like they belong in any environment, how are you gonna have a pronoun? Like it doesn't match up. So we need to ensure that whatever initiative or whatever sense of belonging that we're trying to create, that it encompasses all, and that it is actually, we're moving to make sure that the Black transgender woman is actually showing up in an Indeed video, or in when someone's coming out or someone's transitioning, that they're making sure that they feel comfortable in different spaces and have the insurance policies so they can transition in comfort. I think there's a lot of things that we need to talk about as a tech community, as a community, and start advocating for them. I think we're beyond the gay rights. I think now we need to move into transgender rights to ensure that it's an equitable space for them.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I'm going to add one more thing to this topic. We're also beyond you not having trans people in your lives. So if you call yourself an ally to this community space and you don't have a trans friend, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. They're not hidden. They're not hard to find. They are everywhere in open spaces. They're not going to bite you. Go say hi. Go learn. I hit the point earlier around the difficulty with allyship without proximity. And one thing that I really try to practice in my daily life that I encourage allies to do that might make allyship a little bit more easier to you is try your best to meet as many people who are different than yourself. Try your best to get to know as many people who are different than yourself. It will make allyship so much easier for you. It will make it easier for you to truly empathize, and I still got to figure out my feelings with this word, with people outside of yourself. It will actually help you grow as an individual too. So thank you, Rafael. Thank you, Cha-Cha, for those points around how we can support our transgender community more. And I love, Cha-Cha, yours, making that the capital T and all the other letters lowercase. I think moving forward, when I write LGBTQ, I'm going to actually write it in that way and continue to try and have these conversations. We definitely can use trans siblings. Thank you for that, Mary Grace. I appreciate you. I definitely can do that. And I will throughout the remainder of this conversation and my journey beyond here. Okay, I want to move on to one more question. And if I can, I know, Cha-Cha, you mentioned a little bit about the shame you feel about looking at that old Cha-Cha and how she was grateful. I actually want to ask both of you a question that's very reflective that might help someone who may be where young Cha-Cha or young Rafael was. And so as you look back on some of the struggles that you overcame, what were they? What are those takeaways? And what would you tell young Cha-Cha? What would you tell young Rafael? Because I'm pretty sure someone listening here today could benefit tremendously from that.
Oh, wow. I think I would tell young Rafael 3 things. First thing is never allowing someone else to write your narrative, and their perception of you does not matter if they're not in an arena with you doing what you need to do to take care of things. Number 2, stop letting these people stress you out. Because, honey, once you once you have a struggle, once you die, they're gonna post your job back online. And third is, it is okay to risk it all for the benefit of others, to make spaces for others, because at the end of the day, the universe or whatever is going to bring it back to you fold. And so risk it all, like, because at the end of the day, some companies going to want your outlandish, bold effort. So go out and risk it all. Back to Cha-Cha's point, I'm gonna risk it all. Why not?
I think a couple things. One is I really did think, growing up, especially, and as I was choosing careers, that there was no way to be successful any sort of ethnicity and queer. Like the intersections of those were just like, oh, great. Everyone told me, nope, you're not going to make it. There's no success for you out there. There's no You know, being on panels, who would have a queer person on there, right? That was what I grew up with. And so I think that once I got out of my circles and I really started networking and going to all these different events, I had no idea I would end up in tech. If anything, I would say I probably actively avoided it for a while. I was in nonprofit before getting into tech, and I would say it's just as hard. In nonprofit, I had some of the most homophobic things said to me, or the judgment of my clothes. And so anyone who's on this, not only in tech but across any industry, I would say to decide what your values are and what you're looking for in the life that you want to build, and there are companies out there for you. And so believe that and know that. I mean, you have multiple people on this call that are probably hiring right now, that would love your resumes. I think they were fighting over one earlier. And I think that that would be one thing I would for sure say is there is a right fit for you. If you're unhappy in your current role, if you're thinking about joining the workforce, there are great companies out there. Go find them, but start with what you want, what life you want to build. And then the second thing I would say is find your people at work. It will save your life. It'll build your life. I feel like I'm an auntie to so many little babies that are just community and family and chosen family that I built even from work or networking events or pride work events. You have to find your family out there, because when the going gets tough, you're gonna need folks, and also they're going to know you're going to be there for them, and that's within your own company and outside of it. It's definitely helpful. And then the very last thing I'll say is, make sure that you're building your own brand. So I always talk to people about your 4 one-on-ones. If you get 4 one-on-ones in a month, make sure that at some point for sure be calling out problems, pointing out problems, letting people know that they need to solve it. If you're not willing to, if you don't have the time and capacity, you don't have to be the one solving it. Make sure that you're advocating for yourself, coming back to performance reviews once a month. People should be knowing where you're at, where you stand, what you want out of the hard work you're doing, and then figure out what those other two need to be. Are you solving problems with your job? Or are you just getting to know your manager? That would be my last piece of advice: is build your brand through your one-on-ones and be consistent about the way you do it. It'll also be really balancing for the way that you're able to live and work, is knowing that you're really handling those in a way you're proud of.
I love it. Portia, I'm so glad you're recording this, because those tips, those sound bites should be something that we send out to every underrepresented person in college as they're about to embark onto the workforce, because those are things, to Rafael's point, that would have saved us some stress had we realized them sooner, and probably some sessions with our therapist, because I definitely have ran up that bill because of these things. The last thing I want to leave you all with, in terms of what we've overcome and what we could tell our younger selves, or even ourselves now. This job that we're in, for me, the director of recruiting, for Cha-Cha, it's the DEI work, for Rafael, it's emerging talent. These jobs don't define us as who we are as people. They are things that we do, and oftentimes our passions align, and it's a blessing when they do, but that's not how we are defined when we die and we leave this place. So one thing I wish I would have spent more time on earlier in my career was, what are the things that make me happiest, to Cha-Cha's point? Who are the people that support me and love me and make me happy, whether that's in the workplace or outside of it? And I would have chosen even employers differently in where I spent my time. And so these things don't define you, who you are. You are so much more than the title on your LinkedIn profile. You are so much more than that. And so I wanted to leave you with that. Cha-Cha, I'm going to open it up now for Cha-Cha and Rafael. The last takeaways you want to leave this audience with today. This Carrot family is one that is near and dear to my heart. So if this was your last time with this Carrot family, Rafael, what would you want to say to them on this topic?
Ooh. I guess I would say I'm hiring, so DM me on LinkedIn for sure. I want to drop that nugget just before you get there, Ross. And secondly, I want to leave you with this nugget. Be openly Black, openly Latinx, openly authentic, and openly gay, because this is your time to be you, and love you in all spaces. And so go and thrive, and where you are appreciated and where you're not, hop back out here in this job market and find you a job where you are appreciated and where someone does want to go and build your brand, to Cha's point, where someone wants to actually help you go and bring other people and to have a seat at the table. I think that's what I will leave everyone with.
I think if I left us with anything, +1 to everything Rafael said, I think that there's work to be done, and I don't think it's time to rest. I think that if we truly want the systems to change, that we want and need to be a part of the conversation. There's no way I'm having cisgender white men from the 1800s build my business again. It's just not going to happen. And so I think that figure out in which way you get involved. What's your personality? It doesn't need to be speaking publicly. There's silent, hard work to be done behind the scenes for a lot of different groups, a lot of different companies. Also, tell people to go pick up a broom. If there's work that you don't want to do and it's someone's job to be doing it and they're not, you need to make sure that you are vocalizing that and that you're willing to risk it, or that you're holding other people accountable to get that work done. And so I think that that's would be my takeaway here, is that we can't just point at the problems. Raz and I talk about that a lot. There's a lot of problem pointers out there, but there's got to be solutions, and we also need to want to be a part of those solutions and building what the new systems are. So get involved, and if you don't know how, I'm sure a lot of us on this call, feel free to reach out and we can help